Hey, I'm Jason Fitzgerald, and you're watching episode 17 of Q&A with Coach. Today we're talking about how to get fast across all the race distances. All right, guys, I am just super pumped to tackle another Q&A with Coach today. But more importantly, I'm just feeling good about running. You guys ever have that huge race, or maybe after a weekend hanging out with a bunch of other runners that are just getting you excited about this wonderful sport? That's how I feel. I feel renewed. I feel rejuvenated. I just spent last weekend at the National Endurance Sports Summit with all these amazing athletes and coaches and running experts who bubble enthusiasm. I was with Marshall Ulrich, Travis Macy, Lisa Smith Batchen, and a host of other people. Carl Metzler. I mean, these guys are ultra legends, and it was just really incredible to be around them, to hear all their unreal running stories, and I'm just feeling really good about running and about what I want to do with running, and I hope that enthusiasm bubbles a little bit into the show. So let's get started. We have a really great question from Nicole. She wants to know, she asks, I loved your segment on planning a running season, but I like racing everything from the 5K to the half marathon, and with maybe a marathon someday. How can I plan a year or two of seasons, including recovery, so that I can target and improve at different length races? Awesome question. I mean, how do you get faster across everything from the half marathon to the 5K to potentially the marathon someday? And so, Nicole, I think the answer is probably a little bit more simple than you maybe thought it was. So the idea is essentially focus on one race distance at a time, and then you can plan tune-up races before that. So, I mean, we have our season planner worksheet where we recommend different length tune-up races before your goal race. That's a really good way to get started. But what I would recommend is planning, say, 3 seasons a year. Let's do a spring season with your goal race being somewhere in, maybe April or May. A summer season where your goal race is somewhere in July or August. And this is a shorter season. A lot of summer training is going to be cut short by heat and humidity if you live in an area where those are significant stresses to your training. So that's going to be a short season. Maybe it's more of a base building season, but you're going to throw in some other races during that shortened training cycle. And then, of course, you have your fall racing season. And I like to reserve the fall for longer races like maybe the half marathon or the marathon, when the bulk of your training is when it's hot and humid, and then your goal race is actually when the temperatures drop, the humidity drops as well, and so you can actually take advantage of a lot of those positive adaptations that your body has experienced over those hotter months, and run a lot faster in the fall. All right, I'm getting ahead of myself, but so this kind of a strategy has, 3 seasons, the 2 primary seasons, spring and fall, and then you have your middle season where you're doing something maybe a little offbeat, like, focusing on the shorter race like a 5K, or even a track series if you can find that somewhere near you, maybe an obstacle race, things like that. And then in the fall and the spring is where you can target some of your big races, like if you're targeting a 10K, a half marathon, maybe a marathon. And the key here is just to alternate the types of races that you're targeting. Maybe you do a half marathon goal in the fall, and then in the spring you target a 5K. Now, planning an entire season around a 5K goal race means that you can put in a lot more tune-up races. You can run races that are shorter, the same distance, and longer. You can't really do this with, say, the marathon, for example. You're only going to probably be running 1 or 2 tune-up races, and they're all going to be shorter. None at the distance, and certainly none over the distance of your goal marathon distance race. But with a short race like a 5K, you can have lots of tune-up races. They can be shorter. You can go up to the 10K. Maybe you can even go up to the 10 mile earlier in the season as more of an aerobic type strength workout. But there's a lot more flexibility with training for a 5K. You can do a lot more things there. And so by training for a half marathon, training for a 5K, maybe over the summer you focus on strength and you do an obstacle course race. And then the following fall, maybe you do another half marathon or you focus on the 10K. Now's a good opportunity to focus on the marathon if you want to tackle your first marathon. So by focusing on different length races, you're going to have to do different types of workouts. The marathon runner is obviously doing very different workouts than the person who's focusing on the 5K. More focus on volume, aerobic work, marathon-specific workouts, rather than the 5K runner who's focusing much more on speed. They probably have a lower volume. Their long runs are going to be structured a little differently. So that's really the way to improve as a runner and to continue improving. I talk a lot about the type of runner who wants to run a faster marathon, and they run 2 to 3 marathons a year every year, and it's just the same cycle. You get into a rut. You do the same training over and over again. You do the same workouts. You do the same races. So we want to implement a little bit more variety into our training so that we can focus on different elements of your fitness as a runner. And ultimately, you're going to get a lot faster that way. All right, Nicole, one last really specific thing that you should keep in mind is what I would do is for the primary seasons, I would keep those to about 16 to 20 weeks. So if you're doing a fall and a spring kind of primary season throughout the year, maybe you plan a 16 to 20 week training schedule for those goal races. And then in the summer, you plan a shortened, maybe 12 to 14 week training cycle. And you'll notice that if you do this, there's going to be a few extra weeks throughout your year. So if you do a 16 week, a 20 week, and a 12 week, let's do the math, that's 48 weeks, and you have another month. What do? Well, there should always be 1 to 2 weeks of total rest and recovery after your goal race. So no matter if that's your fall season, your spring season, and your summer season, you're going to want to take a little bit of downtime after your goal race. It's really important to let your body, your mind, even other things like your hormonal system, your central nervous system, all these systems really need to recharge and to recover. And so that's how you implement recovery into your training. And if you're focusing on injury prevention, which if you're a strength running fan, then you do, it's something that I'm very bullish on. If you're focusing on injury prevention, those recovery weeks that you schedule ahead of time throughout the year will be all that you need. You won't have to take unnecessary time off, unplanned time off because of injuries if you're focusing on injury prevention. So this is how you would schedule, an entire year. You can work backwards and plan even 2 years like this, but I would maybe not plan 2 years, of races ahead of time, because you want to make sure that you're doing what interests you, what excites you about running. And that may change from, training cycle to training cycle or year to year. So keep your options open a little bit. But the great thing about being in good general shape all the time is that you can move up to a long race, you can move down to a short race, and your fitness is always there to adapt to whatever goals that you want to tackle at the moment. All right, Nicole, thanks so much for submitting your question. This was a really great one. I hope you guys found value in it, not just in kind of planning your own training, but in thinking long term. How are you going to improve, as a runner, this year and next year, but also, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. You always have to be progressing. And thinking long term like this, which I'm really glad Nicole is doing, is a really helpful way for you to, conceptualize your improvement as a runner. All right, thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed Q&A with Coach number 17, and I'll see you next time.